And we start with breaking news as the defense in the Lindsay Clancy murder trial has just rested its case. The Massachusetts mother is on trial after admitting to killing her 3 children in 2023. Lindsay Clancy has pleaded not guilty and asserted an insanity defense, with her defense team saying she's not criminally responsible because she was suffering from postpartum psychosis. But prosecutors say Clancy planned the killings and argue her struggle with mental health does not excuse her of murder. I want to break it all down now with ABC's Peter Harolumbus and legal contributor Bernardo Villalona. Thank you both for being here. So, Peter, the defense just rested. What happens next?
Yeah, the jury now, Trevor, is hearing from a few experts who are being called by prosecutors. The first of 3 just took the stand, the psychiatrist who's kind of rebutting the testimony we just heard from this last defense witness. In total, the defense calling 10 witnesses over the course of 1 week. That's to the prosecution's 3 weeks of testimony and 71 witnesses. Their last witness, a renowned expert in postpartum psychosis, he was arguably the star witness in the trial of Andrea Yates, and he described that Lindsay Clancy was, quote, frankly psychotic, that she was, quote, like a puppet with someone else pulling the strings, and basically said that in the moment of the killings, she really had no control of herself, no way to distinguish between right and wrong. A really critical testimony for this defense team, their 10th and final witness.
Bernardo, do you think they were able to make a compelling argument?
I believe the defense did a great job in the sense of putting reasonable doubt into the minds of these jurors as to whether Lindsay Clancy was actually suffering from a psychosis at the moment. So from the very beginning, from opening statements, they carried that theme from the father who actually testified, the husband who testified, and the cross-examination from him, being able to develop that she was a loving mom, and at no point there is no evidence that she ever was unloving to her kids, to the number of different treatment options that she actually tried to get for herself. She voluntarily went into the hospital, voluntarily was seeking out help. She had, the defense was able to put not just her parents on the stand, but also the grandparents of the children and get them on her side. And when you're talking about also the experts that they put forward, I think they came out very credible in terms of that she was suffering a psychosis. But ultimately, it's going to break down to battle of the experts and which experts these jurors find credible.
Peter, there was a bit of a halt to the proceedings yesterday where I believe the judge spoke with every member of the jury. There were some disagreements over jury instructions. What exactly happened?
Yeah, this is really critical, especially as we're getting closer to these closing arguments, which could be on Monday or Tuesday. The prosecutors and defense lawyers fundamentally disagreeing about how the jury should be instructed on the law in this case. We know, of course, that Clancy acknowledges that she was responsible for her children's death. And this, if anything, is kind of becoming a trial of dueling expert witnesses. So in this case, prosecutors say that the jury shouldn't be told about this argument about involuntary intoxication, all these medications that Clancy was on. Reddington, the defense lawyer, pushed back on that, said this is clearly a case about intoxication. Clancy was on more than a dozen different psychiatric meds in the 4 months before the killings. He also wanted to add an instruction about involuntary manslaughter, kind of giving the jury a third option when it comes to deliberations. The judge is set to make a decision on that sometime today.
Bernardo, a major question whenever you're talking about murder trials is whether or not the defendant is going to take the stand in their own defense. In this case, Lindsay Clancy did not take the witness stand. What do you make of that decision?
It was the right decision for her not to take the stand. You have to think that when a defendant takes the stand on their own behalf, it changes the jury deliberation in the sense that they are no longer thinking whether the prosecution proved their case beyond a reasonable doubt, and in this case that she wasn't suffering from psychosis. But it turns into, do I find her credible? Do I believe what she said? Do I believe the actions that she actually took? Here, the defense was excellent in the sense that they let the doctors as well as the family members and the chaplain tell her story. And also, you got to get a feel for her because this jury is watching her throughout the entire trial. Remember, during the trial, especially during the medical examiner's testimony, she even broke down. So you got to see the emotion, the grief, and the regrets of what happened on that day. And you wouldn't have been able to get anything else from her on the stand. It wouldn't have been worth it.
Okay, Bernardo Villalona, Peter Harolumbus, thank you both for your time.